Good evening and welcome tonight. Setback for the federal government as it loses bid to extradite Deputy Commissioner of Police Abba Kyari as court throws out AGF's application for being clumsy. Presidential flag bearer of the PDP in Kano receives a former governor of Kano State, Ibrahim Shekarau, and his supporters of the People's Democratic Party ahead of the 2023 governorship election, or general elections, beg your pardon. Our River State Governor Nyesom Wike drops bombshell, says some presidential candidates are coming to loot the country, vows to unmask those dishing out fake rescue promises.
And on business news tonight, African Development Bank and Japan announced $5 billion financial support for African countries facing debt challenges.
On sports news tonight, former world #1 Andy Murray makes perfect U.S. Open campaign with straight sets victory over Argentina's Francisco Cerundolo.
The nation's capital, painful and frustrating year for students in public universities as the Academic Staff Union of Universities dashes their hope of returning to school, extends ongoing strike indefinitely.
Travel in Pakistan as a third of the country is completely under flood. Climate Minister describes incidents as historic and devastating. Reprieve has come for the suspended Deputy Commissioner of Police, Abba Kyari, as efforts to have him extradited to the US has suffered a setback following the dismissal of the suit requesting his extradition by a federal high court in Abuja. Delivering judgment on the suit filed by the federal government, Justice Ibrahim held that the extradition request filed by the Attorney General of the Federation on behalf of the federal government is incompetent, lacked merit, and was instituted in bad faith. The federal government filed the extradition charges against Kyari to pave way for his extradition to America to answer fraud allegations in the United States.
The atmosphere in the court is calm, as lawyers and litigants await the verdict of the court on the extradition suit filed by the federal government against a suspended Deputy Commissioner of Police, Abba Kyari. The Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Abubakar Malami, filed the extradition proceedings against Mr. Kyari, seeking the court's approval to surrender him to the United States government. Mr. Kyari is wanted by the American government over pending fraud charges filed against him and others at the Central District Court of California. The U.S. prosecutors accuse him of complicity in the $1.1 million international wire fraud spearheaded by Nigerian social media celebrity Mr. Abbas Ramon, popularly known as Hush Puppy, who is awaiting sentencing after pleading guilty to the scam and other criminal activities. Temporary reprieve, however, came the way of Abba Kyari as Justice Ibrahim of the Federal High Court in Abuja dismissed the application for extradition by the federal government on the ground that it is incompetent, lacked merit, and was brought in bad faith. The court held that the application offends the nation's Extradition Act since Mr. Kyari is already standing trial before a competent court of jurisdiction in Nigeria. Justice Ekwa further held that until the case against Mr. Kyari is dispensed with, either through acquittal or sentencing, he cannot be extradited. Although the prosecutor, Mr. Pius Akuta, declined speaking to journalists, the counsel representing Mr. Kyari applauds the verdict of the court.
The judgment of the Honorable Court, Federal Court, presided by Honorable Justice Ekwo, is to the effect that the application for extradition, as made by the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation, was brought in bad faith. It was not brought seriously. It was an attempt to hoodwink and attack our clients. And it's incompetent, and it was dismissed and was struck out and dismissed together on the merits too, that there's no merit in it. And the basis of the finding is that there is also a subsisting criminal case filed by the same Attorney General before filing the extradition application, and he cannot pretend to say that he's not aware. The Honorable Attorney General is the chief law officer of the country, and he knows other things, all the laws of the country. And in order to protect the municipal law of Nigeria, it is important that we do not use United States law to trample, disrespect, and disregard our Constitution.
With the dismissal of the extradition case, the trial of Mr. Kyari and 4 members of his unit who were indicted by the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, in a 25-kilogram cocaine deal will now proceed in earnest.
In another legal matter, the Federal High Court in Lagos has stopped the President and the National Broadcasting Commission, the NBC, from revoking the licenses of 53 radio and television stations in the country for allegedly failing to renew their licenses, amounted to 2.6 billion naira. Honorable Justice Akintayo Aluko today granted an order of interim injunction following the hearing of an argument on motion ex parte by the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, and the Nigerian Guild of Editors, pending the hearing and determination of the motion on notice. SERAP and the NGE had last week filed a lawsuit against President Buhari and the NBC, asking the court to declare as unconstitutional and unlawful Section 10A of the third schedule to the NBC Act, which the Commission used to threaten to revoke the broadcast station's licenses. The suit has been adjourned to September 8, 2022 for the hearing of the motion on notice for deluctory injunction. Staying with the judiciary, the Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja has restored the Speaker of the Delta State House of Assembly, Oberowori Sheriff, as the Delta State governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party in the 2023 governorship election. The appellate court voided and set aside the judgment of Justice Taiwo of the Federal High Court, which had on July 7, 2022, nullified his nomination on the grounds of certificate forgery and perjury. Justice Peter Ege, who delivered the judgment, held that claims against the Speaker are criminal in nature and must be proven beyond reasonable doubt. The appellate court also held that Mr. David Edebie, who instituted the suit at the Federal High Court, ought to have approached the court through a writ of summons to enable resolution of disputes, and not by originating summons where only affidavit evidence is required. Shortly after judgment, the PDP governorship candidate led his supporters to a Thanksgiving service in Delta State in celebration of his victory.
I thank all of you. I thank our governor, Jennifer Okowa, who has been in the forefront. He is a leader, somebody who has done very well. He has the fear of God. And our mother, we thank you. We thank all our people of Delta State, the Sherify group. Delta State is happy. Are we not happy? At this time, up till now, we don't have a DG. We don't have social media handlers, but God has been helping us. So we thank all of you for all that you are doing. Delta State is one. This is just a family issue. God, all of us will come. We're going to be on the same page. And at the end, by 2023, we'll come again to give thanks to God. The light that is shining here will continue to shine.
To River State now, where the National Assembly candidates of the All Progressives Congress today staged a mild protest at the Federal High Court in Port Harcourt, demanding that a judge, Justice Stephen Daylop Pam, who's hearing the case instituted by the People's Democratic Party against them, recuse himself from the matter. The protest was held after the judge heard the matter against their wish and adjourned it till September 20th, 2022 for further proceedings. The PDP had filed the suit challenging the National Assembly primaries conducted by the APC in River State, alleging that the exercise was not monitored by the Independent National Electoral Commission. The APC candidates are demanding fair trial of the matter.
When a judge, has a petition before him to recuse himself, that petition must be attended to, because just like the issue of jurisdiction, it goes to the root of his jurisdiction to hear the matter. It goes to the root of his jurisdiction to hear the matter. If I don't have confidence in a court to hear my matter, then there is nothing that court should do other than recuse himself and send back the file for the assignment.
So many judges in the Federal High Court. You're not the only judge. And we say we don't have confidence in you. We are not saying give us judgment or don't give us judgment, but that we don't trust you. What is so difficult in a judge to say, okay, take your matter? Is it because of our case that he was employed?
Politics now. Under the cracks within the People's Democratic Party, Governor Nyesom Wike has told his supporters to remain calm about his next action, saying he will do something soon. He was speaking in Port Harcourt during the flag-off of internal road projects in the state capital. He also slammed some politicians for putting themselves forward to loot Nigeria.
Each time I wake up, I take newspaper, front page. They say, Wike, he did this, he did that. I would laugh. If there's somebody close to me, I say, well, found one bottle of Valencia, make them be uncomfortable, make them to be having sleepless nights. At the appropriate time, whatever required to be done will be done. Nobody can threaten me, not one. And nobody has my life. It's only God that will say the day I will die. Because you that is saying that you will do this, you will do that, just be careful. Before you know it, you don't go. So, just all of us should be calm. You've read what is happening in PDP, this and that and that and that. Nothing has happened yet. But by the grace of God, something will happen. Nobody can threaten me, not one. And nobody has my life. It's only God that will say the day I will die. Because you that is saying that you will do this, you will do that, just be careful. Before you know it, you don't go. So, just all of us should be calm. You've read what is happening in PDP, this and that and that and that. Nothing has happened yet. But by the grace of God, something will happen.
Meanwhile, the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, says he's in the 2023 presidential race to do what is right for Nigerians. In a tweet, the former governor of Lagos State explains that he is in the race to answer to what he calls a higher calling, which is his love for Nigeria. A tweet reads in part, "We are not here to do what is comfortable. We're here to do what is right for our people and our country. We're here to answer to a greater, higher calling. That calling is the love of Nigeria. We dare not miss this chance because we cannot be sure of another." The APC candidates, whose choice of running mate has sparked criticism in different quarters, has been meeting with political bigwigs to gain their support ahead of next year's general elections. In part two after the break, female politicians in the country to get 2.6 billion naira support from Canada to pursue their political ambitions. That's in a moment. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, watching the news at 10 and live on Channels Television Lagos. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Setback for the federal government as it loses bid to extradite Deputy Commissioner of Police Abba Kyari as court throws out AGF's application for being clumsy. Presidential flag bearer of the PDP in Kano receives a former governor of the state, Ibrahim Shekarau, and his supporters of the People's Democratic Party ahead of the 2023 general elections. River State Governor Nyesom Wike drops bombshell, says some people are putting themselves forward to loot the country, vows to unmask those dishing out fake rescue promises. Trouble in Pakistan as a third of the country is completely under floodwater. Climate Minister describes the incident as historic and devastating. Well, staying with politics, many politicians have continued to search for better platforms to achieve their political goals. One of them is Senator Ibrahim Shekarau, who's now formally defected to the People's Democratic Party from the New Nigeria People's Party. He was received today into the PDP fold in Kano State by the party's presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, alongside the vice presidential candidate, Ifeanyi Okowa, and other PDP leaders and supporters. Mr. Shekarau jettisoned the senatorial ticket earlier given to him by the NNPP to the PDP, citing lack of fairness to his loyalists by the NNPP.
These are Ibrahim Shekarau supporters drawn from the 44 local government areas of Kano State who defied the early morning downpour to witness his readmission into the People's Democratic Party fold. Shekarau's residence on Mundabawa Avenue and the surrounding area witnessed heavy influx of supporters and PDP faithful, like the former Vice President Namadi Sambo, Governor of Taraba State Darius Ishaku, former Governor of Kaduna State Ahmed Makarfi, former Governor of Adamawa State Boni Haruna, former and serving governors of Sokoto State Atahiru Bafarawa and Aminu Tambuwal, former Governor of Jigawa State Sule Lamido, as well as national officers of the PDP. In his address at the event, PDP's presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar, who spoke in Hausa, affirms that Shekarau's defection will deliver Kano to the PDP. Your return to the PDP is very important to us, as we are confident you will deliver Kano votes to the PDP. After formally announcing his exit from the Kwankwanso-led New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, Shekarau says he is ready to work for the PDP's success in Kano State come 2023.
I, Ibrahim Shekarau, have today relinquished my contest as a senator for Kano Central against the election of 2023. We wish to assure you of our support, our cooperation, and commitment to the party of the PDP and what it stands for. It is my prayer that by God's grace, come 2023, PDP will emerge victorious.
PDP's national chairman then welcomes Ibrahim Shekarau and his teaming supporters into the PDP fold, after which he presents him with the membership card of his new party. With this defection from the NNPP to the PDP, it's now clear that Malam Ibrahim Shekarau's immediate political future lies with his new party.
Let's head on now to our Abuja studios, where Terry Ikumi is standing by with more news. Joining me on the news at 10. Hi, Terry.
Hello, Marachi. To Electoral Matters we go. The Independent National Electoral Commission says more than 8 million young people completed registration during the recently concluded continuous voter registration exercise across the country. The acting director in charge of the Gender and Inclusivity Department of the INEC headquarters, Mrs. Lakunu Yabelu, put the total registration during the exercise at over 12 million. She was speaking at a youth forum on citizenship engagement and political participation for peaceful conduct of the elections, organized by the Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution. and the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization in Abuja. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, reports.
Counting months to the 2023 general elections, and here the Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution, in partnership with the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, is engaging the youths on the need for a peaceful conduct of the polls.
The 2023 general election will be very, very competitive, and the youth population have a critical role to play in the access or failure, in the success or failure of the electoral process.
Nigeria's elections have often witnessed pockets of violence, with youths often used for political thuggery, sometimes leading to heavy casualties and economic losses. And speakers here emphasize the need to provide more political education for the youths.
If we're able to sensitize our youth and get them not to participate in violence during the next election, certainly there will be no need for the military or other security agents to come in to restore peace after people have been wounded, or even if some have lost their lives.
The youth must understand that when we talk about electoral violence, they are the first line of victims.
The Independent National Electoral Commission INEC registration figure for 2018 shows that the youths constituted 51% of the 84 million Nigerians that registered to vote in 2019. In the recently concluded Continuous Voter Registration Exercise, CVR, the Commission says of the over 12 million completed registration, more than 8 million are of youthful age.
The young men and women constitute the largest percentage of voting population in the country. In the recently concluded voter registration exercise, of the over 12 million completed registration, a little more than 8 million fall within the age limit of 18 to 35.
At the end of the 3-day training, the participants are expected to take home lessons that will be useful for their community engagements. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the Canadian government is pledging 2.6 billion naira to support local efforts to ensure more women participation in politics in Nigeria. This was announced by the head of cooperation at the Canadian High Commission, who represented the Canadian High Commissioner to Nigeria at the United Nations Women's Dialogue with Traditional Rulers in Abuja. The UN woman who has consistently been canvassing for more women participation in the nation's politics. Traditional rulers from across the country and officials of the United Nations Women are attending this dialogue in Abuja on how to address the challenges that have impeded women's inclusiveness in politics in Nigeria.
Resident coordinator and humanitarian coordinator.
The UN lists some impediments to women's inclusivity, including cultural and religious factors. This is the reason for this meeting with the traditional rulers to help change the narrative.
Women's ability to participate in political and electoral processes in Nigeria is hampered by numerous constraints. They include negative stereotypes, sometimes perpetuated by culture and tradition, playing a real and significant role in women's political marginalization. Royal Highnesses, Royal Majesties, we respect you very much, not least because you are key to end electoral gender-based violence and enhancing women's participation in the upcoming elections.
One of the things that is a block is the high rate of violence against women. It discourages women from even standing as candidates.
The Canadian High Commissioner to Nigeria, who is represented by the head of cooperation, pledges financial support to efforts to scale up the campaign for women's political inclusivity.
Canada is contributing 8 million Canadian dollars, or 2.6 billion naira over 4 years to increase the participation, election and appointment of women in Nigeria.
Round of applause. Yeah.
The traditional rulers also pledged their support to the efforts to have more women in politics.
We, in the Council of Traditional Rulers, we are going to organize our meeting, our meeting This will be part of our items to discuss, to be discussed in our meetings. We bring out a position paper which will forward to appropriate authorities.
Although many women have aspired to occupy political offices in Nigeria, only a few of them emerge as candidates in their various political parties. Many advocates are campaigning for increased female representation in the leadership structure of political parties that will protect the interests of women during the selection process of party candidates. Away from electoral matters, students of the nation's public universities may have to brace for a longer stay out of school, as the Academic Staff Union of Universities has resolved to extend its 6-month-old industrial action, this time indefinitely, until the federal government addresses all its demands. It was gathered that ASU National Executive Committee had, during its meeting in Abuja today, resolved to extend the strike after reviewing progress reports on the negotiations with the federal government in the past 4 weeks, when the union rolled over the strike on August the 1st. ASU had first rolled over the February 14th strike by 8 weeks in May this year, and at the expiration in July, the union again extended their action by 4 weeks to allow government to end negotiations with the union. However, the striking university lecturers are unhappy with the outcomes of the negotiations so far, forcing it to extend the action indefinitely, pending when their demands are met. Last week, the Minister of Education, Malam Adamu Adamu, said the federal government had addressed most of the demands by ASU, including the release of 50 billion naira for the payment of earned allowances for academic and non-academic staff of universities. Now to the controversial issue of fuel subsidy, which the federal government maintains will remain until mid-2023, based on the 18-month extension announced last year. To this end, the government is proposing to spend 3.36 trillion naira for the regime in the 2023 financial year. The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, stated this at the 2023-2025 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework and Fiscal Strategy Paper interaction with the House of Representatives Committee on Finance in Abuja. Our correspondent, Dele Omoyeni, has the details.
Ahead of the presentation of the 2023 budget, the House of Representatives Committee on Finance is meeting with the Minister of Finance to consider the details of the 2023 to 2025 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework and Fiscal Strategy Paper.
We have tried to circulate a document.
According to the Minister of Finance, the federal government is projecting the total revenue of 8.46 trillion naira, out of which 1.9 trillion naira is expected to come from oil-related sources, while the balance is coming from non-oil sources.
The crude oil price, which was appropriated at $73 per barrel for 2022, has improved significantly to $103.6 per barrel. Exchange rate, which was appropriated at 410 naira 15 kobo to the US dollar, is now slightly up to 415.19 to the US dollar. Inflation, which we projected to be at an average of 13%, is now up to 17.71%. And this is as at July. It has, from all indications, it's still continuing to climb up.
However, the committee is not happy with the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, as it fails to provide the details of monies paid by various ministries, departments and agencies into the Federation accounts.
Mr. Chairman, you and I know we are on one committee with you. We docked the Accountant General. No wonder he's in trouble. You know, you were chairman. He couldn't sufficiently answer some of our interrogations. Here we have a country that is struggling with debt. Here we have an institutions, well-professionals, well-educated people in the Accountant General Office, but yet they are not able to track our revenue.
I'm not going to send any agency to you to go and reconcile. You should send to us what you have on record. What do you have on record? That's what we need. Do you understand? If you send to us what you have on record, then we can use it to do our own job. They are not even supposed to know that I have the records from you.
Nevertheless, The federal government is pegging the crude oil prices at $70 per barrel, while the exchange rate is at 437 naira 57 kobo to a dollar. The gross domestic product, GDP, is projected to grow at 3.7%, while inflation is put at 17 to 16%. Delia Moyeni, Channels Television News.
Still ahead on the news at 10, the African Development Bank and Japan announced $5 billion financial support for African countries facing debt challenges. To join us again.
Welcome back. The federal government says the ongoing reconstruction work along the Lagos inbound axis of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway will be completed in 4 to 6 weeks, although the entire project will be completed by December. The Director, Federal Highways Southwest at the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing, Adedamola Kuti, disclosed this when he featured on our breakfast program, Sunrise Daily. Mr. Kuti, however, blames the gridlock experienced by travelers on indiscipline by motorists who violate traffic rules, thereby increasing traffic time.
We have provided diversion, and then vehicles can move at the maximum allowable speed. And the maximum allowable speed is 30 kilometers an hour on construction zone. Even if you are driving at 20 kilometers an hour and you have a stretch of 5 kilometers, within 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you are out of that place. Once there is no breakdown of vehicle, once there is no driving against traffic, once there is no accident. Even if there is any accident or any breakdown, we have towing vans, towing trucks are there to pull those vehicles off. But the problem has to do with those who cannot be patient enough to drive and then wait for their turn. So that is the issue. That is the crux of the matter. So the diversion that we have provided can allow 2 vehicles at the same time driving at 20 kilometers an hour. And within 20 minutes, 30 minutes maximum, you are out of that traffic. On that particular stretch, whichever way, and I think within the next 4, 5, 6 weeks, we should be done with that area. You know, we are moving very well.
That's for both sides?
No, for that stretch, for that inbound Lagos.
For that inbound Lagos, for the 1.23 kilometers?
1.3 kilometers.
Staying in Lagos State, a manhunt is currently underway for those who killed the NURTW Park chairman at K2 Mile 12, Sulaimon Onolakbo, popularly known as Kyari. The police command says it has deployed 2 units of rapid response squad personnel and tactical vehicles to complement the efforts of divisional police officers around the area. Hell was let loose on Sunday when Onolakbo, member of Musliu Akinsoya, also known as MC Oluomo, led Parks Management Committee, was hacked to death by suspected cultists. A park boss was alleged to have been on a motorbike when 3 suspected cultists attacked him. In a viral video, the assailants were seen hitting him with dangerous weapons such as scissors, sticks and knives until he became motionless. Police says so far no one has been arrested in connection with the crime. Meanwhile, the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Usman Alkali Baba, has condemned assault on police officers and men in uniform carrying out official and lawful duties in various parts of the country. In a statement, the police chief describes the trend as an affront on the rule of law, warning that such attacks will no longer be tolerated under whatever guise, as the force holds the lives of its personnel sacrosanct. Consequently, the IGP has directed all police commands and formations to ensure that individuals who engage in assault on police officers are made to face the full wrath of the law through swift prosecution in courts of competent jurisdiction. A year after the MasterCard Foundation and Africa CDC launched the Saving Lives and Livelihoods initiative, the partnership is now worth $1.5 billion. That partnership was launched with 4 objectives: the purchase of COVID-19 vaccines for at least 65 million people, the drive for millions more vaccinations, laying the groundwork for vaccine manufacturing, by focusing on human capital development and the need to strengthen the capacity of Africa CDC. The initiative has been described as the largest public health partnership between a global philanthropic organization and an African institution. Speaking at the one-year commemoration, Rita Roy, president of the MasterCard Foundation, noted that the next phase of the initiative would focus on turning vaccine delivery into vaccinations, while the executive secretary of UNECA, Vera Songwe, highlighted the severe impact of COVID-19 in Central Africa and the lessons learned.
This partnership has 4 key priorities: to acquire vaccines for at least 50 million people, to support the delivery and rollout of vaccinations to millions more across Africa, to prepare the workforce for vaccine manufacturing in Africa, to strengthen the Africa CDC and enable it to undertake this historic initiative in partnership with countries.
When we ran our numbers, what we saw was a particularly severe impacts on all of the continent. Of course, in Central Africa, it's mostly a commodity-based sub-region, so oil prices slumped. Angola is the poster child in that sort of category of countries. But in North Africa, we have Morocco, we have Egypt, which are tourism economies, Tunisia, all of that. But Egypt in particular, also with trade and the Suez Canal, where because of the interruption in global supply chains, trade in that region also slumped. The beauty of this is that, Africa had learned from some lessons. We are not, really waiting for somebody to give us those solutions. We have them now.
In other stories, the managing director of the Bank of Industry, Mr. Olukayode Piton, has been speaking about the bank's efforts at deepening growth and contributing to the nation's socio-economic development. Mr. Piton explained in Abuja that those strategic partnerships with the French Development Agency, as the bank has accessed 100 million euros line of credit under the Transforming Financial Systems for Climate program of the agency in collaboration with the Green Climate Fund.
It's the second pre-launch meeting on embracing sustainability standards for value-driven development finance institutions.
Time around, he would find an opportunity to...
The forum is bringing in heads of development finance institutions who are bringing in their plans to improve the nation's socio-economic development. One of the primary drivers of the Bank of Industry is to accelerate the industrialization of the Nigerian economy by providing financial and business support services to environmental friendly and sustainable projects across key sectors of the economy. And this meeting comes at a time when efforts to support businesses is receiving a boost.
We set up a DOI, a full-fledged environmental and social governance team in 2019. This team manages our sustainability strategy and activities.
Globally, as well as in Africa, the challenge confronting development finance institutions are the same. But experts are of the opinion that with more commitment through investments in critical sectors of the economy, more socio-economic growth will be achieved.
A sustainability certified development bank enables the economies to transform from no or low tech and low value added to high tech and high value added economy that works for all sectors of the economy.
And just after the second regional meeting, members of the Association of African Development Finance Institutions also converge on this whole to collaborate on how to foster partnerships that will be beneficial to members.
The challenges are similar, in terms of corporate governance, in terms of how do you balance profitability, development goals, how do you ensure that the institution that is sustainable by strengthening the regional association of Nigerian DFIs. We stand to benefit as Abba, because we believe that that association, in the fullness of time, must affiliate to the continental body of some sort.
Their renewed collaboration is expected to yield tangible results that members of the association attain greater feat that is geared towards employment generation, industrialization, and foreign exchange earnings for its people.
Let's get more business news now from Anne Mawodo.
Thank you, Amarachi. Hello and welcome to Business News. The African Development Bank, the AFDB, and the Japanese government have announced a $5 billion financial cooperation to support countries facing debt challenges on the continent. The announcement was made at the 8th Tokyo International Conference on African Development in the Tunisian capital, Tunis. The fund, which falls under the 5th phase of the Enhanced Private Sector Assistance for Africa initiative from 2023 to 2025, is divided between $4 billion under the current window and an additional amount of up to $1 billion under a new special window. Well, in his part, Japan's Vice Minister of Finance for International Affairs, Masato Kanda, said his country is committed to supporting African countries while respecting their own initiatives. Pan-African credit rating agency Augusto & Co. Limited has released its 2022 Nigerian banking industry report. In the latest annual publication, the former business information provider forecasts a 16.5% growth in the country's banking loan portfolio, as well as a 23% return in equities in the year 2022 for the banking industry. Meanwhile, the agency notes that the forthcoming elections and the growing budget deficit have all forced the federal government to modify several extant laws and tax legislations, which will moderate the banking industry's profit. And Access Holdings has said that it has completed the acquisition of a majority equity stake in Pension Fund Administration First Guarantee Pension Limited following regulatory approval. In a statement released on the Nigerian Exchange's website, the Tier 1 financial institution explains that with this development, FGPL is now its subsidiary and will provide a strong springboard for the corporation's execution of its ecosystem strategy for the pension funds administration industry. Just in May, Access Holdings announced its intention to acquire First Guarantee Pension, and that's after selling its pension business, Access Pension Fund Custodian Limited, to First Bank Holdings. We head to the market now, where mildly negative start for the first day in the week. Investors are still taking advantage of some gains recorded last week. Let's hear the details from Will Ebong.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Stocks kicked off the first trading day of the week with mild sell-offs after closing last week on a positive note. The all-share index fell 0.01%, down 49,676 points, and knocking off 2 billion naira off the market cap to close at 26.794 trillion naira, still inching closely to the 27 trillion naira mark. And that's no thanks to Nigerian breweries, which fell 2.86% in today's trading session. However, gains in the banking sector boosted today's positive performance, as it was up 0.25%. Thanks to Zenith Bank, which did its magic there. Consumer goods and all other key indexes were in the red. Now, there were gainers nonetheless. Nationwide Express topped that counter. It added 6 kobo to its share price to close at 69 kobo. It was up 9.52% today. And now let's take a look at the counter that took the hammer today. Cavitin peeled off 11 kobo off its share price to close at 1 naira 4 kobo. It was down 9.57%, followed by John Old and Japan Gold. 2 more trading days in August, and we wonder if investors are going to brace for a wave of sell-offs in September. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Will Ebong. Back to you.
That's Business News Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawodu. The rest of the news at 10 continues with Amarachi.
Thanks a lot. And Pakistan's climate minister says a third of the country is completely under floodwaters. The country has been devastated by historic flooding for days now, as roads have been washed away, homes and crops are no more, and many Pakistanis are stranded on small patches of high ground. Simon Pusey has this and other stories and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5.
Engine problems have scuppered NASA's launch of the first rocket in its Artemis project, which aims to send astronauts back to the moon. The U.S. Space Agency had a 2-hour window for liftoff at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, but the launch had to be cancelled as engineers failed to fix an engine bleed. NASA's most powerful rocket ever, known as the Space Launch System, is set to send the unmanned capsule around the back of the moon. It wants to land the first woman and the first person of color on the moon.
We don't launch until it's right. And in fact, they've got a problem with the gases going on the engine bleed on one engine. You can't go. There are certain guidelines. And I think it's just illustrative that this is a very complicated machine, a very complicated system, and all those things have to work. And you don't want to light the candle until it's ready to go.
Pakistan's government has appealed for international help to tackle a flooding emergency that has killed more than 1,000 people and threatens to leave a third of the country, an area roughly the size of Britain, underwater. The disaster has affected around 33 million people and left swathes of the country inundated. At least 1,061 people have now died and hundreds of thousands of homes have been destroyed.
I haven't seen any destruction or devastation of this scale.
Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari said on Sunday night that floods brought on by weeks of extreme monsoon rainfall and melting glaciers would worsen Pakistan's already dire economic situation and that financial aid was desperately needed. Meanwhile, a boy stranded in the middle of a heavily flooded stream has been rescued by a helicopter during a mission operated by the army. Video footage shows how the pilots lowered the helicopter and the crew lifted the boy into the aircraft. Helicopters of the Pakistan Navy also rescued 75 residents of a submerged village who had taken refuge on their roofs in the southern province of Sindh.
Sofreu por falta d'água.
Brazil's far-right president Jair Bolsonaro and left-wing former leader Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva have taken part in a fiery television debate ahead of October's general election. Mr. Bolsonaro accused the ex-president of having led the most corrupt government in Brazil's history. Lula, in turn, said Mr. Bolsonaro had destroyed Brazil. Opinion polls suggest Lula, who served as president from 2003 to 2010, is ahead in the election race, but the gap between the two candidates seems to be narrowing. Former Kenyan Prime Minister Raila Odinga says he is confident that the Supreme Court will grant his request to overturn the result of the 9th of August election, which saw his rival William Ruto announced president-elect, citing solid evidence in the case. Mr. Odinga took 48.8% of the vote compared to Mr. Ruto's 50.5%, but Mr. Odinga does not accept these results. He also said he would respect the outcome of the court's decision and that the judgment could have major implications on the electoral processes across Africa.
We don't want the voice of the people to be muzzled through this manipulation like happened this time round.
Egyptian environmental activists recently gathered to clean up a public beach in the coastal city of Alexandria as part of the ongoing awareness campaign ahead of COP27. The initiative, Banlastic Egypt, aims to embark on 27 events this year, including cleanups, awareness campaigns, a marathon and workshops. The cleanup of the beach was the latest of these events. The volunteers collected litter in bags to be later categorized into either recyclable waste or plastic convertible into fuel. And finally, a team of experts from Portugal and Spain have been working to gently unearth the remains of what could be the largest dinosaur skeleton ever found in Europe. Photographs released by the science faculty of the University of Lisbon show excavation works at the site in Pombal, central Portugal. According to the university, the skeleton belonged to a sauropod, a group of plant-eating four-legged species of dinosaur characterized by long necks and tails. Paleontologists say the dinosaur appears to be around 82 feet long and could be among the largest dinosaur skeletons ever uncovered in Europe. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. Former world #1 Andy Murray made a bright start at the US Open with a hard-fought victory over Argentinian Francisco Cerundolo in the first round. Murray demonstrated his grit and guile to win the keenly contested encounter 7-5, 6-3, 6-3. World #1 Daniil Medvedev launched the defense of his Open title, that's the US Open crown, on Monday with a straight sets victory over the lowly ranked American Stefan Kozlov, with Medvedev bidding to become the first man to successfully defend the US Open since Roger Federer in 2008, eased into the second round with a 6-2, 6-4, 6-love win in 2 hours and 1 minute. American tennis star Serena Williams enters what is expected to be her final US Open with a match in a few hours' time against Montenegro's Danka Kovinic, with second seed Anett Kontaveit also a potential second opponent. The 23-time Grand Slam singles champion signaled her intention to retire this month, but never confirming the US Open as her final event. French police have opened an investigation into claims by 2018 FIFA World Cup winner Paul Pogba that he is the victim of a multi-million-euro blackmail plot by gangsters involving his brother. Pogba's allegations come after his brother Matthias published a bizarre video online in 4 languages promising great revelations about the Juventus Football Club star. And that's Sports News. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. It's back to you, Amarachi.
Thanks a lot, Ayotunde. And the main news again. Efforts to extradite a suspended Deputy Commissioner of Police, Abba Kyari, to the United States of America today suffered a setback as the Federal High Court in Abuja dismissed a suit filed by the federal government requesting his extradition as incompetent, lacking in merit, and instituted in bad faith. Also today, the former governor of Kano State, Ibrahim Shekarau, and his political associates formally defected to the PDP. Senator Shekarau and his supporters were received into the PDP fold by the presidential flag bearer and other national officials of the PDP in Kano ahead of the 2023 general elections. And that's all the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Good night.